Risconi, a governor who will grow record jobs, always protect the Second Amendment, and enforce state immigration law, no matter how much the socialist protest crowd whines about it.
I stand with President Trump on immigration. The media says that's racist.
Why is this on WBOK?
Right. He must have been spending money.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. He's paid to stay for it.
So we live, Facebook Live.
All right.
A career politician could do it.
How y'all doing, Facebook Live?
Boom, there.
Risconi, I'm a businessman, not a career politician, and I'm asking for your vote.
I can't sit with
Paid and authorized by Eddie Risconi for governor.
The Amistad Research Center, located at 6823 St. Charles Avenue, housed in the Tilton Memorial Hall on the campus of Tulane University, is committed to collecting, preserving, and providing open access to original materials that reference social and cultural reports of America's ethnic and racial history, the African diaspora, human relations, and civil rights. From its beginning, the first archives documenting the modern civil rights movement, Amistad has experienced considerable expansion and its mistakes. For hours of operations or to donate or for more information, simply call 504-862-3222.
Facebook Live family, what's happening?
Online at amistadresearchcenter.org or follow us on Instagram at Amistad Research Center.
WBOK, New Orleans.
The following program is a paid program that doesn't necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the staff, management, and advertisers of WBOK.
All right. What's happening, family? Good evening and welcome to True Love Movement Tuesdays with your host, Brother Shaq.
And Mama Fire.
And still dropping them jewels, Shaq. That's your song, man.
That's my song.
Really your song, man.
Yeah.
We'd like to welcome everybody this nice, warm August 6, 2019, Black August here in the city of New Orleans.
That's right. Black August.
Black August, and there's so much happening here in the city and elsewhere. We know that many of the young people have returned to school, and so we appreciate you for joining us on your commute home from work or from school or from picking up the children or wherever you may be traveling from. Of course, you can like True Love Movement on Facebook and catch the live feed of us here in the studio. And we got a nice full studio today. I'm a full of community, which we like. Right here, and then of course www.wbok1230m.com on the web, as well as WBOK 1230m app available for Google Play and the App Store. So what's happening?
Oh, I'm feeling good today, Brother Shaq, and just want to shout out everybody that came through to our fundraiser on Sunday.
Fly.
Very beautiful. Thank you so much. It made us feel very full that the practice of Ubuntu is being practiced and utilized and understood and connected with and all those things. And so if you either came through, which was beautiful to see people's faces, or even donated. Some people couldn't make it and they donated anyway. And it was a great show, great vibration.
So serious.
So serious. She's so serious. Serious Sisters doing their thing along with DJ Ivy and the Free Souls. So we had a really good night, and mainly just so thankful for everybody showing up, and the energy in that space was beautiful.
Yeah, it did my heart good too to see that, Mama Fire. You know, we wanted to see, we wanted to know, family. Frankly, you know, did the people really want True Love Movement? You know, we wanted to know, and the people, what we think. People say, yeah.
Oh, emphatically.
Emphatically,
yes, you know.
Emphatically, yes.
And we knew they did. You know, everybody wants it, but it's like, would they be willing to take a little bit out of their pot and to put into our pot just to make sure we're able to stay open?
That's
you
right.
know, doing the work and the service that we do day in and day out, every day, as well as other things. You know, we're always working.
That's right.
And you know, we've shown up for Black-owned businesses here in New Orleans, and it was just our time. It was
That's
our
right.
turn. You know, we having some issues with our healing space as far as the roof is concerned, and so, you know, we're glad to have some options to
That's
be
right.
able to, you know, maintain our healing space.
That's right. That's right, family. And we appreciate, shout out to Chuck over at Cafe Istanbul for holding the space. And
Yes, yes.
we had, of course, we had the Free Souls back together again, reunited.
Aww.
Fire in the Free Souls.
Should never be that long that I rock with them.
And we had our sister, Truth Ambassador Shira. You know, she was up there at the door for us. And,
Yep.
and we had, I saw Sister Toya, who happens to be here in the studio with us.
We got special guests
We're gonna
today,
see her.
y'all.
She was there serving some food along with Sister Michonne
Yeah.
from Mos 46.
So
and,
willing to help and
you know,
jump in as needed.
And of course, we got Brother Moon here in the studio too. We're gonna be talking about him shortly and introducing you properly. But he was also there.
He's always showing up.
Always showing up. There's
Yeah.
a lot of folk who don't always get sung the praises, but they're always there and they're consistent.
Yes.
And as I was saying, everything that happens to everybody happens to us.
Yeah.
Everything that other Black folk experience, True Love Movement experiences as an agency, and I do individually as a Black man, and you do as a Black woman.
Yeah.
Completely individually. And so for our people to exist the way that we intend to exist is an act of resistance.
Yes.
Because, and I said that, you know, the other night, it is an act of resistance because it isn't intended for us to be interdependent with one another this way. It's intended for us to be codependent upon those folk who oppress us, and for us to essentially serve them. And so we have no interest or desire to do that. So it is a bit of a struggle. It is a bit of a struggle to exist outside of that paradigm, but we're grateful for our people here in the local New Orleans community and those from out of town, because there are a lot of folk who did not come and could not come, but still sent love, donation, love offering, what have you.
They did.
You know, and that says a lot in terms of their character and integrity about understanding the importance of us recycling and exchanging this dollar. So we're grateful for them.
And you know, we did it right around back to school time. So
Sure
shout out
did.
to all our mamas who gave that extra little $10 that could have gone to some pencils or could have gone to a pair of socks, you know, a bag of socks or underwear or something. It was really love. And so I took my time and really, you know, thanked the mamas that you know, sacrificed however much they were able to give, just to show that they're, you know, happy and thankful for True Love Movement being in existence.
That's
So,
right.
you know, it just so happened to line up that way. And, you know, it was our first ever fundraiser. It was very successful.
Yeah.
And hopefully, you know, we won't have to do another one. I mean, we don't want to have to ask unless we need it.
That's
Please know, True Love Movement is asking for donations. That means we really need it.
That's right.
Yeah.
And most importantly about this fundraising, what made it successful, it wasn't so much the amount of money that was raised, but it was the exercise in solidarity. It was the Ubuntu principle at work that people say, well, look, man, I got a couple of dollars, take it, you know, do what you need to do with it, you know what I'm saying, understanding the larger mission and how, you know, those tools and fuels, you know, really can add up, and that we can do these kinds of things without being funded by other folk, because whoever funds you controls you.
That's right. And we are so, you know, we are proud to say that we've never gotten any funding from anywhere except for within our community, from within the Black nation.
That's right.
And that makes me proud to say that we're independent in that way.
Right. And so in the spirit of community, we're going to, you know, invite our
Special guest?
Special guest. But before we get to the special guest, I gotta say thank you, Mama Fire. You know, you were able to thank me, and you said some really nice things about me. You said some not so nice things about my hosting, but we'll talk about that privately off air. But,
well, you know, I called you illustrious. I say, you know, Brother Shaq's gonna be our illustrious host, and you mess with me. You was like illustrious.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard that word in a long time, and I realized I spoke too soon. Okay, because Brother Shaq, you know what? You're such a great everything else, but I don't know about host.
Well, I mean, I'm hosting this show today. So
that's what I'm saying. You know, host a 2-level today, Brother Shaq.
Now, you know, Brother Shaq has, you know, after almost 45 years on the planet, I be busy. You know what I'm saying? And you want me to stay in one space to wait to do something?
You are so busy.
It's a struggle.
You're a busy brother, because you was doing everything plus hosting.
Yeah.
You know?
And so were you.
Yeah.
I want to say, you know, Mama Fire went and got that food, and then the rain came down on you.
It sure did. I ain't worried about no rain.
No, well, you ain't gonna melt, but you went and got the food, then you cooked the food, then you got ready. We came to the place, we set up the food, then you served the food. And so I just want y'all to understand, I don't know how many of y'all have a party, and you working at your party, and you preparing the food for your party. And
it was a fundraiser first and foremost.
And that's exactly the case. It was a party for you, your birthday in July, and mine in August.
Yes.
And we're together with 90 years.
Yes, we are.
But that I don't want that to be missed, because sometimes folk feel like, you know, you ain't really doing nothing. Y'all don't really be doing. Y'all just be on the radio. Y'all be talking, you know, or whatever. You know.
We can't worry about what people say.
No, and there ain't no worry about it. But I just wanted to point that out, that the history of how things come to be is so significant.
Yeah.
You know, and so I wanted to shout you out, because see, I know what you're really doing. Because I see it, I'm right there.
You see it every day.
And it wasn't a day unlike any other day, but I wanted to thank you for that, because you made all of that possible. You and your and then you went from, I think sometimes you was on stage, you had your gloves on. You know what I'm saying?
I had the baby in my
You had a
arms.
baby, and I'm saying all that to say that's just what it requires of us.
And we don't also see, like, putting together, and this is what we were talking about, but putting together a show, you know, you have to coordinate all the sisters, and you have to get the lineup, and you have to get the music straight, and you have to get the band together. So there's things that happen before you start a show, and then the reason, you know, why the hosting was a little difficult is because it's a lot of stage managing as well. So it's a skill, and so I'm just thankful that we have skills and come together and
we can pull it off.
Yes, and, you know, we can do what we need to do. So.
Well, we certainly didn't pull it off alone, family, and that's for sure. Some of the folk who were there and had helped us pull it off here in the studio today.
Yes.
And so we're going to talk about some important things that are impacting our people in our community directly. But we want to start off the show with just a rise in power to a great new ancestor as of today, our sister, Mama Toni Morris.
She rise in power,
rise in power, queen. Ashe. And you know, any thoughts on Toni? I know as a fellow author and writer yourself, Mama Fire, and the way she's influenced us all, those of us who pick up a pen to say anything.
Well, it's amazing how she keeps calling me, because, you know, she's one of my favorite authors. Of course, is a Black woman, dynamic author that has, you know, we read her stories in school. You know, they were required reading, and then one of the sisters that I see told me about a movie that is out that she has done, and she was like, "Oh, Mama Fire, you got to see this movie. You got to see this movie." And I'm thinking about it in my head, and then she transitions, and so I know that there's some messages in there in that movie for me.
Definitely.
And so I'll definitely try to see it. Does anybody know about that? That she had a movie out? Did you see it? No.
It's only showing like one time a day at the Broad Theater.
Okay, well, I'll definitely, me and you need to get a bunch of strong, you know, Black women to go see that movie and see what messages she has for us as a new ancestor.
Definitely.
Cause
she's mama energy, and mama and auntie and grandma, you know, all day.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And then rise in power to Baba Kulu.
Yeah, Brother Kulu.
Yeah.
Kulu Kevin Buckner, Rising Power, new ancestor as of about a week and a day or so. He's on day maybe 6 or 7, maybe day 7.
Always a very open and sweet brother.
That's right. And I'm going to get the information before we we go off the air. His
It's
memorial
Thursday. I know
services
that
is
for sure.
Thursday, 10 a.m. at Rhodes on Broad in Washington. But we'll put that up in the comment section. And so shout out to our Facebook Live family who's joined us here live in the studio. And again, gratitude for you all who are listening on the way home or on the way in or wherever you're traveling to. There's so many things you could be doing, and so we're honored that you've chosen to ride with us, and we have a ride for you. We have a ride for you that I think is going to be very pertinent, very timely, and also timeless, considering some of the things that have been going on in the news, the reports of these mass shootings and all those kinds of things that, have impacted our people, Mama Fai, in profound ways, mainly with the restimulation of some PTSD, presumably. So, but we have a good brother here who knows a thing or two about that and meant much more. Our brother Moon, our brother Lumumba. What's happening, brother?
Nothing much, brother.
Thank you for joining us again.
I appreciate you all having me. And first, I want to say the reason that I show up so often to your events is because mental health, mental wellness is something that's very close to my heart.
Right on.
And it's something that I really feel like our community needs. So I really appreciate the work that you all do.
Right on.
And so that's why, if you all ask me, I'm there. If you tell me you're having an event, I'm there.
Right.
If there's a way I can help, because it's important.
Right on.
And that being said, the way that you just described the recent events as far as PTSD, I mean, that's something that a lot of people in our community suffer from a variety of reasons, and it's
Many
not
things.
addressed. And from these recent events and, events that have been going on for a while, as far as these mass shootings, you see this over and over, and my heart definitely bleeds when, I see people who did nothing but wake up and go to Walmart to try to buy backpacks for their children.
Right.
And they're not coming home.
That's right. That's right.
Or, they got shot and may never walk again.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, and I know everybody is touched. Everybody bleeds because of that.
Yes.
And, the way that this country's going with a lot of the things, with the divide that's going on, that seems to be just getting wider and wider. And, the leadership we have that's contributing to that instead of pulling people back. It's causing a really acute situation, a situation that, I would like to say having 2 mass shootings in 48 hours is that situation coming to a head. But
we know,
You just don't know.
that's not
we don't know what else they have.
There's more. We know there's more. There's definitely more. And because there is more, and again, this is not something, there's nothing really new that's happening. This country was founded in violence perpetrated by white males. I mean, that's a historical fact. That's nobody's opinion, has nothing to do with how anybody feels about that. And so, as far as our people are concerned, whatever violence that is being perpetuated amongst black people, with black people, and toward black people is nothing more than a mimicking of the dominant culture. Right. I mean, we've learned how to be
The so-called dominant culture.
Yeah, we've learned how to be violent by way of the so-called dominant culture here in America. That's not, I mean, I understand that there's violence all over, there's violence inside of human beings, but this culture of violence, this culture of saying, I'm going to deliberately pick up a weapon and just shoot random people because I don't like what's going on. That's not in our nature. Because if that was in our nature as black people, there wouldn't be any white people anywhere. That's a fact. So that's not our nature, and that's how come we're not doing that. I don't know, the mass shootings, I think mass shootings are, someone had a number that however many days we are into the year, the number of mass shootings has exceeded that.
Well, one of the things that's going on, and the way this ties back, when they say you can't put it in Trump's lap, what's going on, last year there was a poll, a Rasmussen poll, and what that poll said, 31% of Americans said that there's going to be a civil war soon.
Right.
Georgetown did a similar poll this year. That number went to 70%. So what you have going on is you have people, and when they talk about the young man being in 8chan, and the New Zealand shooter was also in 8, you know, they're on these sub websites that we don't know about in the chat.
Right.
And what they want is, if it's going to happen, it needs to happen under Trump.
Right.
So if we're going to have this civil war,
Gotcha.
we want Trump to be in charge, because that way we have the police and the military supporting us.
Correct.
You know,
Favor
as
of
opposed
support.
to if Ortiz is the president,
Yes.
you know, they're not going to have that support. So when you see these things ramping up, you know, it's partly because they're afraid that Trump may not get that second term.
Right.
And so they're trying to push for a reaction before that happens to create this situation.
And so the time is of the essence for those people who would like to disrupt what they think is a good situation for them. But we know, I mean, historically, we also understand the trajectory about, you know, so-called whiteness and white people, and even it was National Geographic, Mama Five, we talked about that for many years. Since April of 2013, they put out that report about the America 2050, where there ain't no white folks. So that is an inevitability, and that's National Geographic. That's not Ebony, that's not Jet, that's not Black Enterprise. That's National Geographic, which started maybe just 12 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, and it's a very credible thing. So they're saying that. So I think there's a feeling of the end, and a lot of the manifestos that these mass shooters and all these other folk are spouting out is that. It sounds like, you know, they've taken from us, which is ironic because none of these folks seem like they know anything about history.
Right.
They know nothing of history. That's what makes them so dangerous, because, you know, if you knew history, at least you would have some logic and rationale about it. But this is insane because they don't understand what has happened.
Well, they understand myth, and they create myth very well.
Well, yeah, the mythology is profound, right? But the history could clear it all up.
Yes.
And then with regard to even locally schooling and some of the white folks, you know, well-intended white folks in schools, you know, I've been helped over the last few years to really think deeply and ask white folks questions like, who's working with white children? Who's working with these white males? Because all the white people have descended into black communities and all throughout black schools and you know, saving black people, but who's working with these white children? You know what I'm saying? And because only white people can do that work, and only white people should be doing that work.
Right.
But all the white folks are so busy working and exploiting black children, because black children need so much help, and they need so much help because they're trying to respond to this oppression that they've been suffering from, that has been perpetuated by the so-called dominant culture here in America. So we think that if white folks would work with their people, would work with their people, that could reduce a lot of these instances. What do you think about that?
I mean, I definitely, that is the nail on the head.
Yeah.
You know, when you see these things, and you know, I hate to reference Malcolm X, the statement he made to the young lady about, you know, working in her culture. You know, he mentioned kind of regretting saying that in that manner later. But
after he grew and understood something.
But you know, it was a true statement in that, you know, if we're going to get beyond white supremacy, if we're going to have a country where everyone has an opportunity, I don't mind helping my community.
Right.
I just need them to deal with their community.
Correct.
Yes.
And you know, and we can meet on a level playing field at that point.
That's right.
You know, I don't. You know, we don't need. I'm trying to figure out but we don't need the Tarzan complex.
Correct.
You know, someone coming into our community
White
to save us, right?
That's it.
We don't need that.
This is True Love Movement Tuesday. Just say what it is.
You know, we can save ourselves.
Correct.
We have the intelligence. We have everything we need.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You know, if we did not have the outside forces,
correct,
we could be fine. So you're absolutely right. If we would educate, you know, these young men who are coming up, and these young men who are committing these crimes are mostly young 20s.
That's right.
You know, young 20-year-old white men, and they are, you know, getting their news. And you know, I was having a discussion with some brothers earlier, and I was showing them news articles saying that Donald Trump was going to pardon Dylan Roof. And I don't believe that's going to happen. So I know I said that on the radio, but I'm not out there saying that's going to happen. But
fake news.
But, right, it is definitely fake news. But what it does is it tells these young men, you know, they put these fake tweets out and these fake articles, and they say, you know, Donald Trump is going to pardon Dylan Roof. So it tells them if you do a similar crime,
There's
if the opportunity presents itself, he's going to hook you up.
That's right.
You know, and so it makes them think that he has their back.
That's right.
And that goes to them, you know, being in the insular community of people who think like them and, you know, essentially racist. And I go on a lot of the chats, and the reason I don't go on 8chan and chats like that is because they use the N-word all the time. You know, like you know, I appreciate, you know, I appreciate knowing what everybody's talking about, especially when people are talking about me.
Yes.
But I'm not gonna go to a page and just, you know, be abused with monkey images and the N-word. So I haven't checked it out that much.
Well, part of the challenge is too that white folks, or those people who have come to be called white, have been dehumanized by racism.
That is absolutely true.
And they're not aware of that because they have stuff. And they have things in exchange for their humanity. And so and they're unaware because they have a different kind of a situation, but to the degree that they've been dehumanized produces this kind of behavior because people are thinking that they're entitled to something that they're losing because it's not related to who they are, but related to what they have or what they think they have. And what they have is at the expense of those of us who are now politically designated as black and other people of color not having it, that we must not have it for them to have it, which creates the tension, the hostility, and the capitalistic competitiveness.
And I think one of the things that we don't understand in dealing with their community is that we don't understand that they feel like they have their backs against the wall. They see themselves losing their power, losing land, losing everything. So they really feel like their backs are up against the wall. And you know, when people's backs are against the wall, you never know what's going to happen. I mean, we don't see that because we understand that.
Y'all got everything. What you mean your back is hard out here? You struggling? What are you talking about?
But we're making it with our backs against the wall. Our backs have always been against the wall.
That's all we know is the wall.
Right. So we don't see it, but that's really how they feel and what they're seeing right now.
Right.
And so there's some mental illness wrapped up in that as well. And this is not me excusing his behavior at all, any shooter, mass shooter's behavior, but they also suffer from mental illness.
Correct. And their suffering from mental illness looks like this kind of a thing. It's on a mass scale because everything that's being done happens on a mass scale. So let me ask you this, brother. With that being said, and we know that there are things in terms of the course of events that is just still going to have to happen, that everything need not be prevented, and that there's no way around just all of this stuff. It's not going to magically go away. What are some things that our people have already begun to do? Some sane things that our people have already begun to do in a way to outfit themselves to deal with the potential for these kinds of things to happen.
Well, you know, one of the big things that I like to talk about and like to study is emergency preparedness.
Okay.
Within emergency preparedness is definitely self-defense.
Okay.
And
definitely.
to me, you know, when we talk about you know, mental health and mental wellness, for me, self-defense is a self-esteem issue.
Correct.
I love myself.
That's right.
Come on.
I'm not going to allow anyone to come in and do anything to me, especially to hurt me or take my life. Because I'm here, I deserve to be. I love my family, I love my community.
That's right.
And these are all things that I'm willing to defend and fight for.
That's right.
So, you know, when we talk about, you know, these mass shootings that happen, you know, you have to talk about black people defending themselves.
That's
when you
right.
have somebody, you know, going into a church and shooting, when you have someone going into a Walmart, you know, being prepared for that.
Right.
And, you know, some of that goes with, you know, perhaps learning how to fire a firearm, having a concealed permit.
That's right.
Of course, you know, doing all of that legally and educating yourself.
Right.
I mean, you don't want to be carrying around a firearm and not know how to use it, not even learn.
That's right.
But I believe that if you can legally do it, that, you know, it's important that we do. Because I mean, you can call 911. The police will show up eventually.
Right.
Will they show up before this person shoots 60 people in a Walmart? Probably not.
Right.
You know, and one of the things that really made my heart jump about that situation, there was a brother there who was an Army veteran.
Yes.
And he had a concealed permit.
That's right.
And he saved a bunch of kids, but when he described the situation, he talked about when he heard the shots, he pulled out his concealed firearm.
His weapon.
And we have to understand, when the police knows there's a shooter, and they come and see someone of a certain hue holding a gun in their hand.
Say it plain, a black man with a gun is the shooter.
You know,
active shooter equals black man with the gun.
So, you know, so we do have a lot of different considerations when we're defending ourselves.
That's
right. There's definitely another layer to that. But I would rather be in a position to defend my life than to be in a position of, you know, kowtowing to someone with an AK-47.
Absolutely.
At a Walmart.
Absolutely. Self-preservation is perhaps one of the greatest forms of self-love. So it's normal and natural for us to be willing to defend our lives. And I think it's even more critical that we are trained to do it competently and responsibly, and that we really do have that option, right?
Absolutely.
Typically, our people have not thought of it that way. Many times we're trying to get guns illegally. You know, we talked about how some brothers think the only place they can get a gun is on the street.
Right.
It's the only way they can get it. A lot of the times, all these people breaking in cars, they're looking for guns. You know, like they're looking for the gun because they've understood that. In the mass shootings are just a great example about that's where the power is. The power is in the gun, without knowing the history that these people even have the gun, and they call the gun the great equalizer. When they have the gun, they feel equal. So they feel equal to who? They feel equal to who?
Yeah.
Right. So what are some ways that our people could go about positioning themselves to be able to respond to these kinds of threats, or anything maybe at the house? Or what are some practical things, steps that black folk could take, some of our folks who are watching or listening?
Well, without going into it too much, you know, one of the things I was talking to a brother the other day at your event, actually, was transition points. And, you know, because he was asking, you know, what if someone came in here right now? And I was telling him the most dangerous part of any situation is a transition. A transition is a doorway, getting in and out, getting in or out of your car, in or out of a building. If you look at what happened in Walmart, you have people laying outside, you know, shot, sitting outside the door of Walmart. You walk in, people shot right inside the door. Most of the people who were actually in the store were able to escape.
Right.
So you should always be cognizant when you're in one of those transition points. But beyond that, you know, I actually have a firearms instructor coming this Saturday who will be teaching a class, and I've committed to having him come on a regular basis to teach classes.
He's excellent.
He is excellent.
Brother is excellent, and his wife as well.
And I've also, you know, committed to a lot of people who have no experience with firearms. I've taken people to the range for their first time.
That's right.
And, you know, that's something that I'm willing to do, because a lot of people are, you know, a little hesitant. So, you know, come with me for the first time, and I'll show it to you. I'm not a firearms instructor.
That's right.
But, you know, like I said, I believe in emergency preparedness, and that's definitely a part of it.
That's right.
But when I do talks, you know, it's about being prepared for any and all emergencies.
That's right. And
understanding that your life is worth preserving. And that's whether it comes from, you know, a hurricane or white supremacists.
That's right.
Yes, shout out to you, Brother Moon, because you provided that getting ready
several times
workshop for Manifest. So thank you so much for your work and being passionate about loving yourself and loving your community, and you know. And I'm wondering, like, the different roles. There's several roles to take, and we think, well, you know, I'm afraid of weapons. I'm thinking about maybe women, you know, I'm afraid of weapons, and I'm afraid, you know, so I'll be the one who takes care of the children. But the thing about it is, you never know when you'll be called.
Right.
And so if you are nervous, then get with, you know, trained people to deal with that, like to begin, you know, looking at them and touching them, and realize that it doesn't it won't hurt anybody, but just getting comfortable and familiar with weapons.
Right. One thing that I don't believe in is making a decision without having a knowledge base. And on self-defense, I see a lot of people who have picked a side or made a decision, and they never really gotten knowledge of what they're making a decision about.
Right.
They're making a decision based on either what other people said or what they saw on the news. So I really think that that's one of the things that you really need to research for yourself and find out what's best for you and your family. And even beyond getting to the everyday, beyond the mass shooters, there was a situation. My mother, when I got my mother into a class, before the class, she told me that she wasn't comfortable with it. And at the time, I wasn't living in New Orleans with her like I am now. And I explained that there are home invasions every day.
Right.
And unfortunately, right after she and I had that conversation, a very good friend of ours had a home invasion, and it was very bad. And after that, my mother, went to the class, learned, and now she's comfortable. And I have to, take her to the range on a regular basis to keep her comfortable. But, after that happened, to that family friend, she really understood the importance of being able to defend yourself.
That's right.
Awesome.
That's right.
And it's for, and thank you for sharing that story. That's a very important story. And in our culture, sometimes we think, that's for the men to do, to protect our women, but sister, we have to protect ourselves.
That's right.
Period. And, help our men protect us.
That's right.
As well.
That's right. We've come to understand that the more of our people who are trained and comfortable and confident about firearm safety, firearm responsibility, actually reduces the anxiety.
Yes.
It reduces the stress because there's less of a burden on the few people who may be quote unquote prepared or quote unquote expert, and then everyone we're back to that Ubuntu again.
Yes.
We're back to I am because we are, because we're at a point where if you are not, it's almost irresponsible now, I think, to not be. Yes. Because if you are not trained and proficient in weapons or accustomed or prepared, you'll become a liability.
And one of the strange statistics that I'm just going to throw out is, and I don't remember the exact number, but there's a statistic that showed that concealed weapons holders who've gone through the class, who've got the permit, actually commit less crime than police officers.
Absolutely.
So most people, once you've gotten your concealed permit, you've given them your fingerprints, and they have all your information, why would you go out and do something stupid?
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say 100% of the people don't do anything, but the vast majority of people who've gone through that process have decided that they're going to live a law-abiding life and that they're doing it for the preservation of themselves and their family.
Once you start becoming accustomed to it, it takes the whole fantasy away. It takes the whole, and you become accustomed to it, because we don't think about that any differently than anything else. Like we work on communication skills, don't we?
Yes.
We work on how we communicate with people. We do yoga. We eat right. We do all kinds of things to train and prepare to maintain ourselves. This is just one other thing.
Absolutely.
That's all it is. This is just one other thing that rounds out yourself as a human being. And like you said, the studies show that trained people with concealed carries commit fewer crimes than police. So, I mean, it's actually better statistically the more people who are comfortable with firearms. Like, our people don't need to shun away from that. We need to I think we need to embrace it, because the data is saying, many of our folk, we're data people now. We've been, white folks have influenced us so serious. We are data people. We need to see the numbers on that for it to make sense.
Absolutely.
We gotta pay homage to the ancestor Ida B. Wells, who actually started the data thing that the white folks taught.
Appropriated?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
That's the word.
Right on. Right on. Shout out to wouldn't it be a black woman, right?
Yes.
Ida B. Wells, and the black woman invented the GPS, and the black woman is I say it every week, right, Mama Fi? The black woman.
She invented, human beings.
Human
she's
beings.
the one. I don't know if she invented us, but she's the vessel that brings us through.
She sure brings us forth. And she's the real freedom fighter. So
shout out to Toya.
Shout out to
for
our
being
sister
here
Toya.
and dropping all kind of jewels.
That's
Thank
right.
you for being here, sis.
that's right. And I think that's a great way to also introduce Toya. Don't go nowhere, Brother Moons. We got more. We got more with you. But let's greet our sister Toya and our brother here,
Roy
from Stand with Dignity. What's happening, Mama?
Well, first, I wanted to shout y'all out. Thank y'all for allowing me to be a part of the True Love Movement fundraiser and party.
Allowing?
Allowing me to be
encouraging.
Couldn't have kept you away.
Because I appreciate True Love Movement, and it's giving me a lot of tools to use with myself, my family, and within my community. Being somebody that's been doing community organizing for 7 years, I make sure that what y'all give me, I give back to the community. So thank y'all.
Thank you.
But yeah, we here to touch a little bit something that's on the surface. We've been going deep, and me and Roy just been sitting back here and appreciating the conversation that we've been able to be a part of. But up in the surface is this issue of fines and fees that our people are stuck in a cycle of crippling debt. And we just we just made live our website, nolashakedown.org, where people can register to be a part of a Warrant clinic. And I'm going to pass it on to Roy so he can kind of share a little bit what that's about.
I know, before I get into that, I must first acknowledge that this is a mental and emotional health issue. We're post-traumatic broke, paranoid schizo-homeless. There's a lot of different things that we're suffering for in our community. And I also agree that America is setting itself up for a second civil war. And the reason why I know that, and America been knowing that for the last 40 years. And the evidence of that is the way that they're taking away our Second Amendment right in order for to protect yourself from us. Because history always dictate that suppressed people always uprise against the suppressor, and we at that point right now. And I'd like to thank you for bringing that to the table. The reason why we're doing Warrant clinics is because we're post-traumatic broke. We're not paying our fines and fees, and we're not paying our tickets simply because we don't want to. We're not paying them because we can't pay them.
That's right.
And if we look at the way that the cost of living increased in New Orleans after Katrina, we barely could afford to eat.
Right.
So like a lot of the violence that's happening in our communities is because of the lack of that man resource, and that man resource is money.
That's right.
And I figure every day when I wake up, something stopping me from making money. And the only thing I do see every day is someone who look like me. So it has to be you who's stopping me from getting money.
That's right.
And then someone told me it's not you. It's somebody else who's taking that money out of my pocket. Jason Williams said a couple of weeks ago at the bail fines and fees hearing that in the community that someone taking $7 million out of that community will fight back. They're taking $7 million away from our community every day. And it's time for us to fight back. And that's one of the ways that Stand decided to fight back is to create a Warrant clinic. And that the Warrant clinic is what we hold court in the community.
Right.
We take away the option from being arrested. We also take away the fear of going into that building, because like black people in America, we don't like to look at that we're suffering with a mental illness.
Right.
We're hypervigilant.
Right.
So
Right.
this evidence that we're hypervigilant. Every time you see a police car, where your heart go?
To be.
Right.
Right.
I'm telling you, you don't even have to hear the car. We so keyed into how a police car sound that some of us know what the brakes sound like. I swear to God.
That's right.
And that automatically trigger a fear in us. It's time for us. It's time for us to own that fear. And the only way that and the reason why I want us to own that fear, because it's impossible to show bravery of courage without the fear and being afraid of being present.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? My fear is valid. White people shooting us up every day. And I hate to say it, the people who died in those malls are mostly white, but they're not going to change the Second Amendment right whatsoever.
Right.
They're not going to change that. So they're going
Yeah, facing that fear. Yeah.
Malcolm X said that, why would I cry when roosters come back home? They're coming back home.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, thank you, brother. No, he was saying, we have to own that. We're afraid that we have to own that, and that's what True Love Movement does. True Love Movement, talks about our mental health issues as it relates to oppression, as it relates to suppression, as it relates to racism and white supremacy. And because many of us think the brothers on the street that may be, talking to themselves or, may need to go to the mental hospital, that's the only way mental illness can look. But I think when we are triggered, quote unquote, Brother Shaq says that's a war term, but when we are, when we respond to the police in that way, that's PTSD. Yeah. And it has a lasting impact, meaning you may go home and talk to your children some kind of way. You may go home and be distant with your wife. You may go, and so we at True Love Movement actually, talk about how that, that carries on in our lives and the ability. And so you were saying owning the fear. Tell me again about owning the fear of these things, of the anxiety, so that we can be brave.
The first way I own my fear is to recognize that my fear is valid. Is this a valid reason to be afraid? American history is a valid reason for me to be afraid to be a black man or a black woman or any brown skin minority in this country today. This country is set up and designed for to suppress me. It made profit off of suppressing me, and it gets nothing in return in freeing me. It gets nothing in return in freeing me, and it almost cuss. It's for sure don't get nothing by making me equal, acknowledge me as one of them. Mm-hmm. Black people, we're gonna stay in the state that we're in this country as one, as long as we call ourselves black, because we're not black. Black is a crayon that come in a box. We didn't come out in no box. We're not black. Mm. And then we gotta reject that God that they gave us. Mm. Because that's another whip that they're using to whip us now. Like, I don't like to target people pagans, because like you pray to whoever to the God that where you were born at and who your parents pray to. And we're not just suffering for our own traumas, we're suffering from the traumas of our parents and our relatives and our ancestors as well. So we're dealing with generational traumas. Mm-hmm. Like some of these, like it's
deep, brother.
And no matter how deep this conversation goes, we still just scratching the surface.
Yeah,
so we're not going
it's deep, and we are trying to organize a way to heal one of those surface levels of harm, which is the cycle of debt that people are in within the municipal and traffic court system. Mm-hmm. In 2017, we hosted a Warrant clinic.
We had one then, right?
Yeah, we had two. We had two. We had one in March of 2017 and one in September of 2017. The one in March of 2017 was glorious. What we learned is that we saved the community over $2.2 million.
That's right. That's a low estimate as well.
It's a low estimate because we began counting later in the day. When we stopped running around like chickens with our head cut off, we began to ask people as they left Corpus Christi, which is where we hosted it at, how much did you owe, how much did you pay, and did the calculation from there. And we know that's a form of reparations. Right?
That's right.
But that's the reparations that's getting us from negative to zero. Right. Now we're waiting on to get from zero to wherever we're supposed to be.
That's right.
And we see this as a direct connection to that. And we see this as people getting healed. And we come from a long history since about 2010 of organizing a full and fair employment campaign, where we've won many policies with the city. But those policies don't do nothing without enforcement, and those policies didn't do nothing for people who had to go get background checks and had outstanding warrants and fines and fees. Right. That kept them from getting that background check and kept them from getting a driver's license to get a job at the airport or whatever the job was offered at.
So there's another barrier.
Another barrier.
There was another barrier.
But since Toya talked about all the wins that we had got that managed to gain, New Orleans is the only place where a win have the same characteristics as a loss. Our people are still in the same state. For us, it's true abolishment of a system that wasn't designed to work for us. This system is not designed to work for us.
Correct.
We could have a Warrant clinic tomorrow, and next month the same people who came in a Warrant clinic today will have to go to the Warrant clinic next month. So it's true abolishment of a system that's not designed to work for us. Mm-hmm. And Toya can tell you, every ordinance, policy, political push that I played a part in, I did my best to make sure everything went through. not to prove that this system works, to prove that this system is flawed, and we need to get rid of this flawed system and create our own system. As long as America is afraid to talk about race and write policies that keep on talking about race instead of using pretty words like minority and disenfranchised, because white women are a minority and white men with military backgrounds are a minority. They're the ones who benefit mostly of the civil rights movement other than us. So it's time for us to benefit. It's time for us to benefit of the struggles of our ancestors. Our ancestors built this country, and New Orleans is the largest construction site in this country, and we don't have access to those jobs in this city. So that's why we're not paying out. That's why we're not paying our fine, like our mainly. That's the reason why we're committing some of the crimes that we have to commit.
Correct.
So like the true threat to national security is not the laws that we are breaking, the reason of why we are breaking these laws. So fix the reason why we are breaking these laws, and then the threat to national security will automatically resign itself. Like you said, we're inherently, black people are not violent.
No.
Black people do not come from a culture of poverty. Poverty was introduced to us in this country.
That's correct.
Violence was introduced to us in this country. And we'll be naive to believe that violence won't get us out of the situation that we're getting in, because kumbaya is not getting us nowhere.
Correct. Right on.
Well, let me ask you, I'm so intrigued by the Warrant Clinic. Can I ask you, what would it look like? Do people come and they have their paperwork? I hear, and I'm thankful that y'all are doing this piece of it, and helping our people in this way to put more money back in the black families' pot. So I just interested, what does it look like?
Well, I think we want people to come to us now and register, because what we learned is if we put a date out there, then the system is all whacked. Everybody's showing up the day of. We got to figure out how to get people get people's information, find them in the system. What we want to do is make it easier on the court, so they don't have no reason to not do it, to not serve people. So we are registering people in advance. People could go to nolashakedown.org right now. We just made this website live today. It represents us as a people. It represents our culture. We're using our culture to make change happen, because everybody else uses our culture to do whatever they want to do.
Come on.
So we're using our culture to make change happen. So when you see it, it's a bounce video. It's Roy talking about some real stuff.
Shakedown.
Yes,
nolashakedown.org.
That's right. Check it out.
So you go in there and you register. So you have, in order to go through the Warrant Clinic, you have to be registered. And we're not turning nobody around. So if the Warrant Clinic happened and you don't get to go through it that day, then what we doing is we creating a plan with the city and the judges to catch the overflow of folks that we know we go receive. Because of the history of doing this 2 times, we know that we know that there's an overflow of folks that come. So go to nolashakedown.org, and there's 3 points where you could register. We want people to look through the whole site. Just look through the whole site, watch the videos, but there's 3 points where you can click the link and put your information in and register, and we'll call y'all to come to some Stand with Dignity meetings where we can give you more information about Stand, give you more information about where we at with the conversation with the judges in the city of New Orleans, and also let you know when we have a date for the Warrant Clinic.
And there's a reason why we're using the word shakedown. Shakedown was a strategy that the mob used in order for to extract money from business holders and within their communities.
That's right.
The police is using the same strategy to extract money from out of our communities. Like I started off in the beginning by saying they're taking $7 million from out of our community. They're using that by threats of violence. But being arrested is a violent offense.
That's right.
Family separation is a violent offense.
That's right.
So like these threats are used to extract the money from our neighborhood. So it's time for us to stand up and demand, understand that they should have consequences to negative behavior.
That's right.
But also, this country needs to realize that if you put a fee on somebody that they cannot pay, the only thing you're doing is creating a new violent cycle that the system had created.
That's right.
So, and in all honesty, some of the money that they got from the Warrant Clinic, from the last 2 Warrant Clinics, is money that they wouldn't have got anyway.
That's right. That's community organizing.
Yeah.
Everyone is.
We're not saying nobody ain't gonna give you nothing. We're saying you're gonna get something, and it's gonna be within reason.
That's right.
The Supreme Court had already issued a finding saying that you need to look at the person's ability to pay before you issue a fine. It's not a blank fine.
That's right.
And to be honest with even with some of the things that Vera put out there, financial consequences don't make us safe.
No.
If I could kill 20 people and you give me a $4 million bond, if I pay them $4 million bond, I bet we kill 20
That's
more
right.
people.
That's right. What you're talking about is the need to bring humanity to systems and institutions who were created to further dehumanize people by dehumanized people.
Yes.
So what we're gonna do, family, we want you to stay with us because we got plenty more show to go. This is Brother Shaq
And Mama Fire.
on True Love Movement Tuesdays. We see y'all right after the break. Hold tight.
All right.
All right.
I'm going to. Yeah, all right, y'all. We still on Facebook Live, so if
Facebook
y'all
Live
want to
is
talk a
still
little bit.
Shout out to Mama Charlita. We got Sonia Maria there. Tamara Prosper. What's happening? We thank y'all for joining us.
Hello?
Simply like True Love Movement, and share this with people you respect. The Warrant Clinic is big. Like I say, it's been done twice in 2017. They've learned some lessons, and this is really community organizing at its best, family. Because this is not an individual thing. We ain't talking about running up on nobody by yourself, saying the system is wrong and it's unfair and we mad and all that other stuff. That ain't what we talking about here.
And like we started off in the beginning, like this country look at data. This country love data, and we're collecting the data for the let them know what we already obviously know, because they need the numbers to know our obvious right now. You know what I'm saying?
So how does it work? So they come in, and is the city willing to make a deal with them for part of the fine?
Yeah, we have the judge that we worked with the most. Was asking folks, what can you pay today? Some people like, I got $100. Some people like, all I got is $9. He was accepting that, clearing the outstanding fines and fees, and with that comes the clearance of the warrant as well. Mm-hmm. So that's how it worked one time. What we're trying to do is get all the judges to do that. Different judges do different things. Different judges have different motives.
So how did y'all start that? I mean, do you know a judge and you just discuss whether it was possible?
Judge Charbonnet.
Okay.
Is how we started. Like 2 months before she announced her bid to run for mayor was when we, December 2016 we approached her the first time, and she was open to doing it, and we didn't know why she was so open to doing it. We found out later. She was open to doing it, and she got Judge Jones, Judge Landry, and herself to come in on a Saturday. She got the city attorneys to come in, and the city attorneys are key in making a successful warrant clinic happen. And so she got them to come, and they brought the court to Corpus Christi Church on St. Bernard and Galvez, and it's just the same way the court work. You go, you first you see the city attorneys, then you go and see the judge. And then the judge asks how much can you pay. At this first warrant clinic, the judge asks how much can you pay. You let them know how much you can pay, and they accept that, and they clear your warrants and fines and fees.
And then they were giving you a reinstatement letter at the first warrant claim too for free.
To get your driver's license reinstated.
I mean, I think what y'all doing is amazing, and I remember the anxiety as a young man growing up in New Orleans. Dealing with traffic tickets, and the worst I've ever done is 12 hours in jail over a brake tag, ticket that I didn't pay.
Too long.
And I mean, just everything in and around, being in jail over, a brake tag. Right.
Right. That's the only time I've ever been in jail, brother. Is for traffic, something, brake tag, suspended license that I didn't know I had. I mean, it's the only time I never committed any crime.
Right. Yeah. But one of the things that made one of the warrant clinics so easy to do is when Oliver Thomas got arrested for traffic ticket as well. It was in the outside city. It was in Louisiana, but it was an outside city. So it brought real attention to how flawed the system is that we're under. Mm-hmm. And to be honest with you, they always had the discretion of who they're going to back.
How come just?
All right. Right, family. You're here live on True Love Movement Tuesdays on WBOK 1230 AM Real Talk for Real Times.
very spirited discussion going on in the studio today. This True Love Movement Tuesdays, Mama Fire.
Yes, I'm so thankful for our special guest today.
Studio is full, and we got full, not just full of people, but full of knowledge, information, and passion. Really good community organizing happening and taking place throughout the city that you may or may not be aware of. Of course, shout out to our Facebook Live family during the break from the air. We had a lot going on in the studio as it relates to the upcoming Warrant clinics done by Stand with Dignity, and we're going to be giving some more information out about that. Of course, we got our brother Moon here in the studio. We were talking earlier about responding to, the survival, responding to some of these threats, and in a very practical way, in a practical legal way, to keep us out of range for what has happened, what causes us to be connected with warrants and fines and fees and breaking laws, that we can do these things in a very legal way. What you say, Mama Fire?
Well, I say that, I'm so glad that everyone is here, and it may not seem like these two topics are related, but they're completely related.
Very much.
Because of the warrants and the fines and fees, that's another, when we take care of those in the best way we can, that's another way to preserve ourselves, because that is our entrance into the criminal justice system. That's our entrance into jail. If we don't take care of those things, but we know we can't in a lot of ways.
It's a gateway to prison. That's exactly what it is. Like,
it's a gateway to prison, and it's a gateway to not having that legal access to firearms to be able to protect yourself too.
Right.
That's
I thought about that a lot when we had that conversation. People having warrants, fines, and fees, criminal records, and the black community is highly criminalized, and we're not even a violent people. So.
No.
but if we look at the historical evidence, Hitler did the same thing to the Jews in the 8 years America been doing it to us in 40 years, but America know what it been setting itself up for.
Absolutely.
And like you said, they're looking at like the white population have a threat, and I believe that if I had the same threat as well, like to be, what word I could use, to be produced out of existence. That's their fear. They're being produced out of existence. Their females mating with us, we mate with them, and race mixing is at a high level. White people fear that they genetically won't be here tomorrow, and they're trying everything in their power to stay here genetically.
Well, the studies, the statistics, and the data shows that that's not going to happen. It's not. It cannot be done. Number one, we can't be done, and we need to think about that. So that's not even our issue right now. The white people are white people.
Yeah.
We have to look at it in terms of the things that affect us, whereas the poverty that you were talking about that produces us and puts us in situations where we're breaking laws, and the way this is criminalized and how the criminalization is about blackness. Because the poor people, this city is 53% poverty. You know that, right?
Yes.
I know you all know that. 53% of the city is in poverty.
49% of the kids are living in poverty as well.
Right, but we talking about data. The state of Louisiana poverty is only 15%. The nation poverty is only 15%. But right here where we are, it's 53% in a majority black city. See, that's we can't ignore that. It's not that something's just happening and folk getting arrested and can't pay their fines and fees because they just trifling.
Growing up in this city, one of the main ways that young men like myself would get arrested was simply not having an ID. And I don't know if that's the same. I don't know what they do now, but I know when I was young, if the police stopped you and you didn't have an ID, they would arrest you. And when the feds came in and investigated the police department, they were amazed at that, because what that's called is a Terry stop. A Terry stop is a stop and identify. And legally, you can stop someone for maybe a couple minutes to identify themselves, and that's without suspecting that they committed a crime.
Right.
So when the feds came in and asked, New Orleans police officers, well, how long can you hold someone on a Terry stop? They say, oh, over the weekend.
Right. Now, why would they hold somebody over the weekend? There was a reason.
Yeah, because the jails in New Orleans at that time had a financial incentive in order to arrest you.
The per diem.
You know what I'm saying? And then we gotta look at everything. Like, that was our first introduction to fines and fees too. I grew up in the Desire Project in the 90s. Now I went to jail 22 times for criminal trespass, and I was 16 years old in the neighborhood I grew up in. So walking from school a couple of times. Then they had the obstructing of the sidewalk law they were hitting us with it too, that they deemed that legal. So it's a lot. The criminal justice system in New Orleans at that time was a user funded system. It's no longer funded like that, but the judges still have a culture in their head where they need to extract money from out the neighborhood.
Right.
So it's changing that culture of extracting money from out the neighborhoods is a real difficult thing to do. And especially the what that was we were looking at when they were teaching judges how to extract it.
I was about to say, similar
Tell
to the police believing that you could keep somebody over the weekend. There's a training that judges go through that teaches them how to extract the most money out of the court system. How they run their courts to make sure they get the most money.
Wow.
Now, I don't know if I should say this on air. We trying to flip that and train them how to not do that.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, that what you're trying to do is, you're looking at changing policy, because the only changes have to happen at a policy level, and policies don't change because people don't like them. Policies change when people organize. So that is the right thing to do, because you're trying to bring some humanity to the thing. And oftentimes the judges, judges are what? People. So aren't judges people?
Yes.
People, they're human beings. And so many of the policies cause them to be complicit in dehumanizing other people, because it's the law, it's the policy. They don't even have an opportunity to say, well, I don't want to do this, I shouldn't do this, because in their training they've not been made accountable or accountable gatekeepers. That's not what they're not responsible, and people can't sit them down because this is how the policy set up. They're insulated from that. So what you were talking about doing is bringing humanity to it, so they realize that is a person who has a family, who comes from a family, who is struggling, and even though this thing says this is wrong, because this is going to put them in a situation where they're going to become desperate. You know what I'm saying? And that judge can understand how much power they actually have to help someone get closer to their humanity.
Yeah.
But we have to be honest in this conversation. How many privately ran prisons are in Louisiana, in cities that the main source of income is that prison?
Right.
So
Well, all throughout rural Louisiana.
Everybody have a financial incentive in order for criminalization to stay on the level that it is right now. Because once they start criminalizing us, it's the same arguments that plantation owners had at the end of slavery.
Right.
Like, what we gonna do now? How we gonna make money? This is how we've been existing.
That's right.
There's still Louisiana is still existing of a plantation economy, and we're not talking about it, and we're not being like. People be like, you're like, man, why you always angry? Because like you said, self-preservation.
Right.
I'm trying to protect myself.
Right.
This is not anger. This is fear that's masked by a lot of anger. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm afraid that one day I may not be able to see my kids. I'm afraid that one day one of my sons not be able to go home to my grandbaby because of the level of criminalization in New Orleans right now.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
So
And fear is a normal response.
That's
a normal human response.
When something is being
oppression.
threatened. When something being threatened, either socially, economically, sexually, it's a lot of different areas of our life that could be threatened. But when that area of our life is being threatened, it triggers a response.
That's right.
Definitely.
And we're being threatened.
We want to open the phone lines up to our listeners and shout out our Facebook Live folks. Of course, put it in the comment section and we'll respond to you as best we can here on the air. Shout out Sonia Maria, Mama Charlita, Alka Pittman, and everybody joining us. Tamara Prosper on the Facebook Live. But the solution line is 504-260-9265. Again, that call-in line is 504-260-9265 on this August 6, 2019, here on WBOK 1230 and Real Talk for Real Times on True Love Movement Tuesdays. We're dealing with self-preservation, warrant clinics, and more, family. So first-time callers, as Mama Fire said, call out for the first-time callers if you want to contribute to the conversation. Brother Moon, back to you, because you were saying something earlier about how this ties in terms of the being on the front side, having your paperwork straight. You talked about having an ID and understanding what laws are and how laws are being applied to you, whether you know the law or not, how the laws are being applied to you, and what you can do on the front side to reduce your liability.
Right. Well, to go first, I want to address something that the brother said. When you talk about slavery and you talk about how many times you were arrested for trespassing and things like that, vagrancy laws came directly from slavery.
That's right.
And, you know, they created vagrancy laws because exactly like you said, they were like, well, what are we going to do with all of these people? They would arrest them for vagrancy, and then they would force them to
Back
work
into
back
it.
for
Into it.
the people, you know,
Change.
that, right. So, so when you talk about, you know, the ways that things like trespassing and blocking the sidewalk and things like that, you know, those were designed to be used against us, and they're still being used exactly like that. So, you know, what those do, but to tie into what you're saying, you know, I think that we need to let people understand, number one, how to deal with the police. And I think how to deal with the police is something that goes along, you know, very well with warrant clinics and things like that, because, you know, not talking keeps you out of a lot of trouble. Right. And when we get stopped, we sometimes talk a lot. And we talk a lot because, we're scared.
We
nervous.
don't mean no harm.
Right.
We ain't even trying to do nothing. And we really try to stay alive.
Right. And, you know, what the sister said, Sister Toya, about how that takes away our rights, you know, once you get in that trouble, now, you know, there's things you can't do. Number one, once you become a felon, it's hard to take care of your family because it's hard to get a job. It's hard to get a job in New Orleans anyway.
Right.
It's impossible to, you know, defend yourself with firearms. You ain't even supposed to be around one. There's so many rights that get taken away, and you know, we all understand the 13th Amendment and how that was brought about, how slavery is not abolished in this country. And you know, and when you deal with you know, a place like New Orleans, which my understanding is that it incarcerates more people than any place in the country.
On the planet.
Right, and that's what that was my next thing. So since, you know, right, so since the United States incarcerates the most people on the planet, New Orleans incarcerates the most people on the planet.
That's right.
And yes,
1 in 82 people in the state of Louisiana.
Sometimes it's good to talk about the countries that New Orleans convict more people than Louisiana convict more people. So I'm talking about like Afghanistan, China, and I forgot what the third one was. But you go to jail in these countries for simply saying Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
So we gotta understand, like, that brings another level of, urgency to it. Like, you go to jail in these countries for saying Jesus. So imagine the miscellaneous things that we're being convicted for in New Orleans as well. Particularly New Orleans, where they're using the bond issue in order for the it's illegal for to make a person make a plea by distress. But if I hold you in jail and tell you could go home, all you gotta do is plead guilty, that's making a person making a plea under distress.
Right.
And we're not talking about that. Like, we need to really sit down and talk about these issues and take it out of American court and look at them as human rights issues, because like, we know it's illegal what they're doing to us. It's time to bring it to the attention of the world, because the rest of the world do not know.
And I think bringing it to the attention of our people, because many of our people don't know.
Yeah.
Right. In terms of organizing and then our people being clearer about what you're talking about affects them, whether they've been arrested 22 times or not, or whether maybe they've never been to jail, they're still affected in the same way. And so in terms of, because the systems and institutions that you're talking about flipping around, they're very well organized. They're very well organized.
This system is so beautifully designed that I couldn't create something like this on purpose if it gave me 50 years to do it, and they won't tell me it's an accident.
Right.
Right. And so our liberation comes in our ability to organize together and out-organize this particular system to bring it down.
Absolutely.
We got to do what politicians care about doing every 4 Novembers. We got to care about public safety, and to care about public safety is to make sure that people have access to full and fair employment, access to not even just full and fair employment, because there's an argument in the black community, employment versus like entrepreneurship. We need to be employed before we could be entrepreneurs.
Right.
And we need to do them both, in my
Both
opinion.
are important.
Yeah, both are
and.
important. We gotta care about public safety. Roy mentioned earlier that people being issued fines and fees did not make the public safe. It actually make the public a lot less safe, because people go do what they have to do to pay those fines and fees, just like they go do what they have to do to feed themselves and their families.
And the suspension of the license is definitely not making society more safe. They have more people driving uninsured than unlicensed as well.
Right.
So this is a way that we can remedy all those things and truly address the issues that make public unsafe.
Right on, and we got the lines lit up too, and we're gonna bring our callers in here. Thank you for holding, and welcome to True Love Movement Tuesdays. What's happening? Hey, what's happening?
First check my own private car. How you doing?
Hey, brother, what's shape?
I'm an election of district attorney's office. It's gonna be a powerful office when the election come up. I agree with your panel. They're really speaking truth to power. Because I'm a social worker and we study policies. A lot of these policies have kept us in chattel slavery. So we got to look at some of these policies and address these incorrect policies that are hindering us from being all we can be.
That's right. Right on,
so
bro.
Upcoming election, we gotta look closely at these upcoming elections and get somebody in there that we can talk to, that can understand and that's sympathetic about bonds and fees and all that.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
Carl.
We
Thank
appreciate
you so
you
much.
for listening and joining and contributing to the conversation richly. What y'all say about that? You know, the brother. You know, I had some thoughts about it, but I'm interested to hear what you all think about it in terms of, getting someone in there, as he said, that's going to, work on behalf of the people. What do y'all think about that?
I'm afraid of politicians.
You're afraid of politicians?
I believe that anyone who try to change the system from the inside become a part of that system and often become more wicked than that system that they intended to try to change. I believe that like I said in the beginning, I believe that this total system needs to be abolished, and we need to create a new system, system that works for us.
Okay.
Because this system is not designed to work for us at all.
Right. Okay. Now I don't disagree with what your assessment is, but I wonder how in order to dismantle a system, there's going to have to be a shift in power. Because the system is intended to perpetuate itself. And as you said, when someone becomes part of the system, they then too become complicit. And then they also a force for the system, which puts them in direct adversarial relationship with the quote unquote with the people. So how do we organize for change inside the system and also outside the system? Because I can't see it happening any other way.
I think that if we look at some of the strategies that they used in the early civil rights movement, they only had 50 black politicians throughout the whole country back then. And the most change that happened for minorities in this country happened in that brief 10-year period. And it is not because of just because of the movement that Martin Luther King. They had two other adversary movements to that, the Black Panther Party, and they also had
That's right.
the Nation of Islam. I don't believe that violence is a cure-all for everything, but I believe without that threat of violence being there, they'll never take us serious.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
Go ahead, Tom.
No, go ahead.
Oh, so
what you said.
I have thoughts, and I'm really trying to be careful about what should be shared here and what should be shared once we cut the mics off.
Yeah.
But I believe that there's three trains, right? And the train I want to be on is the abolitionist train. I'm personally an abolitionist, and building abolishing the system. Right. But also we have to have the train running where somebody got to be building that new system. That's and making sure that new system is completely decolonized of what we think and know now, because we could bring some stuff over to that system that don't need to be there.
That's right.
And then there's a structure that need to take care of the people we currently in this structure, right? We currently living in this world.
That's right.
So what does it look like to create, to put people in power that will enforce policies that support people equitably? And I think that's the harder train for me to be on, but I think it makes sense to say that I think the system do need to be abolished, but at the same time, we still living under this structure. So what do we do and how do we do it? And I see a lot of people practicing different ways, like the brothers and sisters in Mississippi at Cooperative Jackson. And that's a long plan that's been put in place since Chokwe Lumumba.
That's right.
Senior was around before he got in office as a mayor. That's work that they've been doing. Yeah, so I'm curious about what it looked like to be, just to be conscious of these three trains moving, and make sure that all of them oiled up and ready and running well.
But I like that. Now we got a call. We got the lines lit up, and we want to catch this call right quick. Thank you for holding, caller. Welcome to True Love Movement Tuesdays. What's happening?
Hello, how you doing? This is DeAndre Mosley, and I just wanted to call in for a little input about solutions that we can do in places like New Orleans to empower people.
Okay, what's happening?
So basically, the biggest problem is that we are locked out of a lot of the economic drivers that are in the city. For one, New Orleans as a whole, the economy is very stagnant. We're not growing enough. We're not growing in population, and our economy isn't diversified enough. And that's especially true for us because we rely so much on the tourism industry. And so because those are low-paying jobs, most of that is all entertainment with us. And since we don't own a lot of the hotels, we don't own the events, venues and things that we do to perform, a lot of those things are not generating wealth in us. We're the talent, but we don't make up any of the people who own the real estate and the property where we can use these talents.
That's right. We never have been.
Right. And so because of that, we're going to have to focus a lot on entrepreneurship and get our political, economic situation in order. By right now, we don't have the power for national elections, but we do try to focus on the local level and starting from the grassroots, electing politicians and pushing our agendas that are specifically for the black people in the New Orleans area.
Okay.
Thank you, DeAndre.
Thank you. Duly noted.
Appreciate you. Appreciate your knowledge and willingness to share it with us.
Right on. Some insight there from the young folk. You know what I'm saying? You wanted to respond to that, Toya, or Mama Fire? You had something?
Not so much to DeAndre, but to Toya's talking about the trains, and I think that's beautiful. Train is a metaphor for movement and breaking through some things. And I think the connection between it says we know what kind of person we are. We know our policy fighters, they're passionate about that thing. We know our abolitionists who are passionate, and we know our futurists who are like, get it ready for our legacy. And it's about making that connection and having that unity, really, Ubuntu, when we are creating these things for the future of the Black nation.
Right on.
One of the things I see when it comes to politicians, when we elect these politicians, that we don't really put enough pressure on. I was in Chicago during the whole Laquan McDonald thing, and so now they have a black female mayor who ran, about on that issue that she would not allow that to happen. We have a black female DA in Chicago who also ran on that issue. To see the pressure that the FOP in Chicago is putting on them is amazing. I mean, I know, it's made national news, what they're doing to Kim Fox about Jussie Smollett. Like, that's the only reason they're raking all the coal. Nothing about Jussie Smollett. They don't care about him. It has to do with Laquan McDonald.
They know how to use the issue.
Because she ran on holding the police accountable. So what happens is we have to understand the pressure that these politicians we put in are under from other people.
That's right.
And we tend to put in politicians, and then we say, well, we like them as people. They're cool, so we're not going to put no pressure on them. We're not going to call them out when they're not doing what they say. Right. We're not going to call them out when they don't fulfill their campaign promises. We're going to sit back and hope they do the right thing. Right. And we have to agitate, and we have to put that pressure on them and let them know, if you ever want our vote, if you want our support, if you want to sleep at night, you have to do right by us. Right. Because we put our energy into you.
Right on. We got the lines lit up still, Family True Love Movement Tuesdays this August 6, 2019 here in New Orleans. Thank you for holding, caller. What's happening?
This is Lloyd Dennis.
Hey, what you say, Baba Lloyd?
And this is a great show. It's just a couple of things. One thing I'd like to point out is that the way the civil rights movement worked was it depended on media to communicate what was going on in the South. And at the time, media was owned by a very diverse collection of people. And then in the early 70s, in Reagan, they started the consolidation of power in terms of media. So, like, back then, no media outlet, no media company, no company could own more than two media outlets in the same market. So you could own a newspaper and a radio station, but you couldn't do like Clear Channel and own 8 radio stations and a billboard company.
Right.
And so what was happening, they figured it out. They figured out that the civil rights movement worked because the people in Nebraska got to see what was going on in Alabama. So what they did was they bought up all of the media. So when's the last time you saw any kind of protest on national TV that wasn't first exposed on social media? There's labor union stuff going on all the time in this country, but you're never going to see it covered.
Right.
So that's one of the newest challenges is that how are we going to be able to communicate nationally? That's why this radio station in New Orleans is so important.
That's right.
Because if WBOK wasn't here, none of these things would get discussed. Now, what's interesting is it might get brought up on BOK and then carry over because BOK brought it up and aired it out.
Right.
And then the second thing is the piece about politicians is politicians, there's two things in politics that give power, and one is money, so because it takes a lot of money to run a campaign and to be elected. And the other one is votes. And our people got discouraged. Some of our people got discouraged back in the 60s and the heyday. We used to all vote. All segments of the black community used to vote. But then one segment got in and kind of looked out for themselves. And so poor and struggling black people have a tendency to not be, strident voters. But politicians only fear one thing, and that is getting elected or not elected. And the last caller was right. And then we elect them, and then we don't show up in no meetings. We don't show up in the council chamber. There's an expectation that this process, as flawed as it is, it can work better, but we have to participate. The organization that you're doing is fine. And what I always like to tell people is develop a personal constituency. The people that you are related to, that you help out, that you give a hand to, that where you develop that constituency so that you at least have the power to get some people to go vote. You have the leverage to get some people to go vote because if you ask them, they'll go.
Right.
So we really have to understand with the history. Man, we could march all day, and all people are going to see. You might see it on local, and you might see it on somebody's Facebook page, but it's not going to make the national news.
Right.
It's just not going to make the national news, and so that kind of impetus for movement, we have to really, really look at. And so I just wanted to bring those things up so that we have those perspectives, involved in this conversation. Keep doing what you're doing, guys. Appreciate you.
Right on. Thank you, Baba Lloyd. Thank you for dropping some elder Jews up in there, man. We appreciate that.
Appreciate you, man.
Right on. Did you have a response? Anybody? Brother
I like to
Roy,
think
what
about,
you say about that, man?
I like to think when the Black Lives Matter campaign was so popular, it was assumed that they had a threat of violence.
Right.
Think about all the attention that they got because they had the threat of violence.
Assumed threat.
Assumed threat.
Right. Because they were black.
Yeah.
that was about it. I never seen the Black Lives Matter people have no
They
guns.
just had the assumption that they were violent. They got a lot of publicity because of that assumption. And a lot of attention was drawn to their needs because of that assumption.
Right. Well, large numbers of organized black people are always presumed to be violent because there's a little bit of guilt in this country that produces some fear. These black folks in mass should be angry, or perhaps they're afraid.
But we should talk about violence.
Definitely.
There's a difference from being violent and protecting yourself.
Okay.
Protecting yourself is not a violent act. It's protecting yourself from a violent act. It's time for I really believe that we need to put ourselves in a position that we victimize the victimizer.
Okay.
The victimizers are victimizing us. It's time for us to victimize them.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, what you're saying in terms of victimize the victimizers, so in order to victimize anyone, you've got to have positional power over them. In other words, the power you have it's got to be in a proximity where it's actually over them. That's the only way you can down press them or create fearful circumstances psychologically. So in order to victimize people, we've got to have
or we've got to possess a level of power that in this country historically people who are politically designated as black do not have. And so I'm saying I understand that, you know, intellectually, and also really feel it emotionally, but that is, what you're saying is that is perfect, because it helps our people who, when we start talking about black and white, you know, black people are misunderstanding that, and black people are saying black people are being racist. Because
not possible.
Well, it's correct, it's not possible, but the reason it's impossible for black people to be racist is because of that power dynamic we're talking about. We do not have the legitimate access to all of these systems and institutions that are creating these situations and circumstances that our people are being victimized by. And so because we do not have the legal access, in other words, because we do not have that, we ain't about to do it that way. There's something else that we've got to do. And what better way than the organizing that you all have been doing? Because the difference is, the organization, just like when Babala was talking about earlier in the last caller, is process driven. It is slow. It is that protracted struggle. Yeah. And what we want is a mimicking of what the dominant culture, the so-called dominant culture has done with violence, is the event. See these mass shootings? Those were events, right? Those were events. So those events got a lot of attention. What has been invisibilized in many of our minds are the processes that led up to these events happening, the history of it, the things that happened individually with these people who created that. So our power, and Mama Fire talked about that for many years, our power is a softer power. It's a softer power. It's more feminine energy is what it is. That's really what it is. And so understanding that in the way of organizing and processes and executing the processes and then following up, is just like, it's unfortunate, but Moon, we gotta work harder. Because we don't have the individual relationship. We don't have the singular relationship with systems and institutions to be able to stand up there and demand this change and it happen. We have, the Ubuntu principle must occur. We must work together. We must have a net that really, really works if we're going to do anything. And but our challenge is, we want what white folks got. We want it to go like white folks got it. And a lot of our anger and frustration is rooted in the fact that we don't have it like that. Yeah. You know, you were saying something?
Yeah, I was telling Roy this.
The wheels turning. The wheels were turning.
I just was telling Roy this in the car. I was talking about how, like, every relationship matters. Not just the relationships we build with the judges or the city attorneys, Jason Williams. It's every individual that has an outstanding warrant of finding fee that we meet on the street. All those relationships matter. All those relationships require a plan, because this not Stan's warrant clinic. This is not the judge's warrant clinic. This is not the city attorney's warrant clinic. This is the people's warrant clinic. And if we do a warrant clinic and they think it's for Stan or anybody else and not for the people, then we fail. Right. Then we fail. This is about people raising their voices and making this warrant clinic happen. It's not about no institution. It's about people and the relationship that we built to have that unity.
That's right.
Awesome.
What say you, Mama Fire? Because
I mean, I you know, whenever we talk about power, you know, black people are powerful people.
Oh yeah.
And the thing about it is, we don't know it because we've been taught, you know, deliberately that we are not, and we've been taught deliberately like the only power there is political. Right. You know, and what I'm so grateful for True Love Movement is doing this not low, but grassroots work, connecting people as far as relationships are concerned, and reminding, and for people, not reminding, but supporting people to remember their personal power. Right. First and foremost, because rising that vibration, you start to understand, you know, how we've been caught up in the system, how it's created mental illness, how it's created, you know, mental health issues, physical health issues, and all kind of things. And you know, so I'm so glad that Stan and Toya and Roy are doing this work. I'm so glad True Love Movement is doing this work, and I'm so glad Brother Moon is doing his work, because it all comes together into a powerful Ubuntu.
That is right. One of the things I think about when you talk about how this would end, and you talking about our power. What I always tell people is that Black people need our Me Too moment. I've worked in television, film, radio. The casting couch went on forever until one day people said it's not going to happen no more. Yeah. Like nobody should have to deal with that, and people just stood up and said enough. And I think that when we decide that, and within us, when we decide that this is going to change, when we stop accepting it, and what they're doing with the Warrant clinics and things like that, that is not accepting the way that the criminal justice system is run. Mm-hmm. When we decide as a people, as a community, that these things we just not going to accept it, they're going to stop. Mm-hmm. But there's too many of us who are getting along and going along to get along, and there's too many of us who are actually profiting off of the system. Mm-hmm. And so we're going with it. But when we have that Me Too moment, when people looked at Harvey Weinstein and said nobody should ever have to do that, that's what we need. Somebody to say, nobody should ever have to accept that racism. Nobody should ever have to accept living like that, and we're not going to do it anymore. Mm-hmm. And I think it's going to be a sea change, when people just stand up.
I think we're in the process of coming to our feet, and we are standing. We're coming to a stand, but we're also coming from a crawl too. We're not necessarily coming from a sitting position, and that's something to remember. Again, in the course of time, what you're talking about, Brother Moon, is people who are acquainted with their humanity will respond that way. As a result of the multi-generational dehumanization that our people have suffered from, we are not operating in our full humanity. And so what we're seeing are these, half-hearted attempts or defensive maneuvers, really. What we're talking, I think what we're all talking about is coming from a position of power. But that position of power, like Mama Five was explaining, something has to happen within you individually, and so that's the work that True Love Movement does. Because much of what we're seeing happen is people, and Toya, very well, sometimes the masses of people are just hiding in the masses of people. They're just hiding. They're not really doing any of the work. They're not trying to do any of the personal work. They're talking about what people need to do, and they're approaching this from a lack perspective. They're doing a needs analysis as opposed to a power analysis. Mm-hmm. And so that fundamentally right there keeps us kind of in a needy place, and an angry place, and a place where we're not as clear, in a place that we're always playing defense. We're always playing defense. It's not that we want to do that, but the way we're responding to this suppression. So we're encouraging our folks who are watching, who are listening, to look at the individual work that you do to fit yourself into a healthy Ubuntu situation. That it takes a healthy village to do this. We need to know that our people who are arming themselves are clearer in mind. We need to know that our people who are confronting systems and institutions are clear about what these systems and institutions are doing to all people. Because if we don't do that, we're going to be perpetuating much of the same thing, because we were taught by these systems and institutions. They taught us, and they reward us for maintaining their ways. And we are people who are brilliant. It takes all of this to dull our light. It takes all of this. And here we are, standing, literally, with dignity, human dignity. Right?
Definitely. And I loved how the show opened with Brother Moon talking about the reason he defends himself is because he loves himself.
Right.
And our people many of our people don't even subscribe to caring and loving for themselves yet, because depression is real.
That's right.
And our people struggle from it. We don't even care about our physical bodies.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't even connect what may be going on mentally or even spiritually, you know, as well. So there's a group of people that's going to be like, yeah, Brother Moon, you talking that talk. But they've also gone through a process of connecting to themselves in a way that they, you know, actually care for themselves and their children. And then there's a group of people, of our people, who are so scared and so sad and so apathetic about any of it, about voting, about the tickets, the warrants, you know, and it's about continuing, if we know, to teach, you know, if we know that these things work, to teach, and the connection between the three, talking about three different organizations here, the connection between the three for the benefit of all of our people.
Right.
We're not leaving nobody behind.
That's right. Right on. Brother Moon, you had something?
Sir.
Right on.
All right.
Right on. We got a brother that he's shouting you out, Roy. His name is Durance Quinn. He says, what up, Roy? And he was asking to explain, he wanted to know about a topic, but he was trying to figure out, can y'all explain what True Love Movement is all about and what the purpose and the goal is? And so we won't take any time, Roy, we're almost at the end of our show anyway for that, but we've got there's lots of information on True Love Movement that you'll be able to catch up on, and we'll put a link there in the thing so you can understand that. But today we're focusing on an upcoming Warrant clinic, understanding that so many of our people have been shackled by fines and fees and are unable to pay because of the unemployment and underemployment, and are really feeding the system. The system is really exploiting these folks.
Our people.
You know, our people in a major way. And because we are just trying to survive, we are not moving or mass moving in a way. So yeah, it's Renata, it says Roy. Somewhat Renata, his cousin's fiance, is what the brother is saying.
We just glad you joining us, brother. We glad you joining us.
You know, True Love Movement Tuesdays every Tuesday from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock here on WBOK 1230 and Real Talk for Real Times. Black owned and in the city of New Orleans, as we all, you know, lift that up and champion that. That is an act of resistance, and it has been a struggle. It is a struggle for black institutions. Not because black folk are, you know, you said something earlier, Roy, about being minorities, and you know, that word just means less than.
Right.
Yes.
You know, that word means less than. It has no numerical value in this particular construct, and we are certainly less than who? Less than what? It's less than human, and that's the policy. That is the policy, and so when we are viewed, when we view ourselves, and we engage with a system or institution that views us as less than human. We can do anything to somebody that's not human.
Yeah,
right?
I've been corrected on a lot of words that I used on the first time I was corrected. I used the word female.
Thank
Somebody
you.
brought it to my attention that that was the way that you auction off animals.
Correct.
That's right.
And I corrected my language from that, so I really appreciate that correction.
Thank you. And if we're going to talk about the prison system being global, then we need to talk about black people or people of color being the majority globally.
Right. 95% of the people on the planet are quote unquote people of color, which is definitely not at all a minority. You know, a numeric minority, and not that you were saying that, but that deals with the socialization on how we are taught to see ourselves, and because we see ourselves that way, we engage with ourselves that way, and it also makes it easier when something does happen to us. I mean, it ain't no big thing. It was just a minority. What's the big deal?
That number actually talk about the many different ways that it suppress us, even much with the figures that they have us praying to. So, like, if a lot of people feel like God, race don't matter, which I agree with. It don't matter. Gender of God, race of God don't matter to me. So why would this person who we pray to is only 5% of the world population, and the place that this historical figure was assumed to be born at, there wasn't like a melon. So what's the rationale in it?
Well, there's a lot of history of dishonesty. That's why they call it his story, not our story.
It's a great side.
Right, but you know something? The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said something many years ago that stuck with me, and I'm sure many folks have heard him say that, but what he said was that, you know, he said that an organized lie is far more powerful than a disorganized truth. See, we have an organized, a very well organized lie. Very well organized lie.
And when you go into what we were talking about earlier about mythology, you know, I love history, and when you go into the history of this country, and you know the history, European history, it's all mythology.
Come on.
You know, but behind everything is some dishonesty.
Right.
And
that's why they want you to believe it, because there's a lie in the middle of anything you believe.
And they're telling the children now, we can see it right in front of our eyes, that slavery was indentured service. You know, they were indentured service. These are happening in their textbooks now. So everything we learn in school were lies.
Correct. So you know, we know history is important, and the reason why I would like to just, you know, lift that up in the history of the work that Stan has been doing, Toya, and the leadership and the evolution of leadership of Stan, because not everybody knows that, and I'm saying that's significant is because a great many of the times our collective approach as those people who are politically designated as black is we need this, we need to have this. See, black people need to, and I understand where that's coming from. What that's saying is that particular person, their light's coming on. And so now that their light's coming on, there is a sense of urgency that what we need to do. And what many of us don't do is look at the history and say, well, now wait a minute. Before I woke up, what were people doing? Were people fighting with any of these demons in these systems before that? And who were those people? And how did that fight go? And look, what can I learn about them? And because that's the ahistorical arrogance of America that we're all socialized into, that it's not a thing until I say it's a thing.
Yeah.
The party don't start till I get here. And that is a mythology. And the fact that we have so many people who have been working at this for so long, who have dedicated their lives to it, who have gone without, who have died penniless, who have suffered all kinds of things. And we jump up one day after we read a book or saw a YouTube video and decide all of the deficits of black people, and this is what we need to do. Black people need to get it together. And I know because I was that person in my early 20s. That's how I know. See, in my early 20s, after I got through being a knucklehead for my entire life, and a street cat, and I realized that there's more. Oh man, I was so hard on our people. Man, I was hard on our people. Black people don't want nothing. They don't want nothing. Cause see, I understood I was good. I don't know about them people. What's wrong with them? And it took a lot of years to get to the point where, man, ain't nothing wrong with our people. Something happened to our people. And what our people are doing are responding to that oppression. And it's messy, and it looks ugly, and every time we have a reaction, somebody says, oh, no, you gotta chill out, calm down, don't be so angry. You know, so then you think something wrong with you for feeling a certain kind of way. So this is, but I'm saying all that to say, getting there is a process. And processes, like you said something about female, the concept of process and steps, that is feminine energy, man. And feminine energy is not desired in the United States of America. You know that?
Yes.
All things feminine are devalued, they are less than, we're not interested. Look, if I can't get it right now, I don't even want it, ain't worth nothing. There's an energy about that, there's a culture about that. So there's a lot of resistance in just in moving through processes. And so I appreciate Stan with Dignity being there for the long struggle. You know what I'm saying?
I'd like to get that website for sure of how to register.
Can we type it in? Do you know it off the top of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
NOLAshakedown.org.
.org. Cause guess who needs to work?
Yes,
come
indeed.
on.
NOLA.
Yes, indeed. We're gonna see you there.
You're gonna see me there. I'm going to register tonight.
Yeah, take a look at the website, because Roy, as he did on y'all show today, is dropping a bunch of jewels on the video on the website as well.
Awesome. Thank you for being here, Roy. We appreciate you here, brother.
And I put that link in there, Yeah, nolashakedown.org. Folks, if you fines or fees are on you, here's a way to get them off you. And
municipal warrants.
And municipal warrants. And I want to say something just to amplify something Toya said earlier, that it ends up being a win for everyone, because one of the things that makes the struggle of of those of us who are politically designated as black, we're always at odds, we're always at war, there's always an antagonist thing, and so it's this dichotomous that, man, I'm gonna get played, I feel played, like, but we don't have power, so we just feel played and we still get played. So this, what this does is brilliant, Toya, because the city is able to collect money that it otherwise probably wouldn't be able to collect, some money, and then it also causes the city to have to look at itself to say, well, what's going on that I get all my revenues from people breaking laws? Mm-hmm. What's up with that? Like, where's the integrity in that? Where's the character in that? What am I? Because you're sending, implicitly saying that that's the way we make money. And so if that's the way we make money, then we ain't fixing to do nothing to change that. But meanwhile, we're just destroying people. Mm-hmm. Right. You know, the whole city is being impacted by that.
And they got two Supreme Court cases where actually deemed that to be illegal. And one of the things that we failed to do in the beginning, we need to thank the city attorney for their participation in the first one. Mm-hmm. Without them, it wouldn't have been possible for us to reach the numbers that we reached. Yeah. Right. And we really, really need your involvement in this one.
Yeah. Right on. That's organized. Yeah. That's inside and outside. Yeah. We our sister Sonia Maria was saying, and I don't have a lot of information about it, but she was talking about informing individuals to listen out for Clean Jacket Day, where they can get their jackets cleaned and get their rights restored. Now I don't know about that, and Sonia Maria, we'd asked if you drop us a link or give us some direction for our Facebook Live family to take advantage of that information as well. And then we would ask our listeners to like the True Love Movement page, check this show out, share this show and other shows with folks that you respect. And the conversation on the thread will continue. Even though this show is coming to an end. We would certainly like to thank Stand With Dignity with Toya and Roy and everybody at Stand With Dignity who's been doing a lot in the city for a long time, who may or may not get a lot of shine for it, but they really do it, and they do it for the love of our people, because there ain't no whole lot of money in this family. Black folk who do social justice, social services kind of work, there ain't no whole lot of money in that, because you're talking about disrupting somebody else's money. You know what I'm saying? So there ain't a whole lot of money in that. So people do this for the love, and they do what they need to do to survive. We don't want to think our brother, speaking of survival, our brother Moon.
Anytime you need me, brother.
Right on it.
I love that.
And I know you ain't just saying it. That ain't no lip service. That brother takes care of business. And there's an upcoming event for black folk. We're going to drop that in the comment section as well this Saturday. Brother Moon referenced it. Some good quality training that we recommend our people experience that, and that'll change it for everybody. I assure you that will change it for everybody. Folk will think twice before they do something and before they respond to something under the right circumstances.
And on on the criminal justice tip, on Friday at across the river at Black Star Cafe, we're showing the movie about the Angola 3. Mm-hmm. And two of the Angola 3 are going to be there answering questions. Oh, wow.
That's right. Brother Albert and
Malik?
Woodard. Woodfox.
Yeah, King, right?
Woodfox and Richard King. Yes.
Yeah. Awesome.
I wanted to shout out UDA for organizing that, and I remember we had he had sent a message to us. I'm trying to locate it right now about the Black August.
Right. Cruel and Unusual is the name of the movie.
Cruel and Unusual? Yeah, there's a whole series of events. So what I'm going to do, just in the interest of time, because I can't locate it right now this minute, we're going to drop the flyer inside of the comment thread where you can check out the Black August events, because there are many. And, shout out to their work that our brother Lamont and UDA has been doing in terms of the organizing of Brother Malik Rahim and so forth.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's been a beautiful week, family. We are so grateful for the love that you've shown the True Love Movement, for Mama Fire individually, and for Brother Shaq. And all we can say is one thing: wholeness. Share the show with folks you respect, family. All right. So Facebook Live is still kicking.
Thank y'all so much. That was a good show.
That was a great show.
And so we're gonna put it on YouTube.
Okay.
Right.
And then, are y'all gonna do flyers or?
Now we're doing flyers.
We have flyers right now.
Okay.
Okay.
But we have to renew our flyers because that website is, we just
Put
made
it
it
on.
live.
It's really, really fresh. I saw it. Came out
Put them
today.
in the office and tell all my people about it, you know. 'Cause
Right
sometimes
on.
we don't hear. Sometimes we don't hear about it until it's over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what we don't want to happen. But even after it's over, we still have a plan.
Okay.
So we didn't talk too deep about what the campaign is, but the campaign is to eventually get the city to grant amnesty to what we just did a public records request
Okay.
and learned that it's 45,557 people that have outstanding warrants due to not appearing in court or not paying a fine or fee. Municipal and traffic court only. And the idea is to clear that, to purge that system.
Yeah.
That's
I
what we're
was
pushing to
looking
do.
for one of my cards just because if y'all have volunteers, if y'all need anything, I would love to help you. I really do appreciate it.
I mean, if you want to do a training at the Warrant Clinic,
Right.
we get some space to get a gun grant.
He does
just
so much
survivalists,
more.
yeah.
Yeah, he does emergency preparedness, and I think now we're gonna have to talk about how to survive a mass shooting, and not be afraid to talk about those things.
Right.
Yeah, so I think y'all will make a good connection. I'm glad y'all connected here. The True Love Movement Hour.
Cool.
But is there a space to sign up on the website? Because I saw the website. Is there like a
Yeah,
volunteer or
there's like
something?
3 spaces. You can click as soon as you get on there. You can scroll down, watch the video to learn a little more. You can scroll down, learn about stand, and they got a link there. And then you can scroll all the way to the bottom. There's like a donation for our organization link. There's learning more to get to our website, and there's another link to click. It's like 3 times where you can click to register for the Warrant Clinic.
Oh, well, I don't need the warrant. I'm just trying to register to help you out.
Yeah, well, do that and say that just make sure you make note of that.
Yeah, all donations don't have to be financial. If
Yeah.
you can volunteer some time, we're good with that.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I take your